as much as I love to be wrapped up in all the optimism and to see the glass half full, there is a other side to the Browns' potential next year, right? With anything that can create great expectations and high expectations and maybe even a lot of wins, also comes with a lot of disappointment, potentially, right? Both sides of those coins have to exist in order for this thing we call reality to kind of happen. So in order to talk about, and I've already kind of talked about why the Browns are going to be good next year, I also want to talk about why it's possible that the Browns might not reach their potential. Now, defensively, I hesitate. I really hesitate, but I honestly feel like it can't go as wrong as it did last year, next year, because I think Jim Schwartz is competent. But let's say this defense they're not a disaster. They're better than last year, but they're not really good, right? Like they're kind of just meh, still have some of the same problems, giving up over 20 points a game. That level of defense where, hey, it's not a disaster. It's not an embarrassment. We're not giving up 14-point leads with 2 minutes left, but we're still not the defense that we feel like we should be playing at. So that's definitely something that could factor in. What could lead to those factors? Maybe Grant Delpit underperformed after having a strong end of the year. Wouldn't it be the first time somebody at that position has underperformed after having a strong start to the year? Maybe Miles has a down year. It'd be hard to predict that given that he just had 16 sacks injured for most of the year. But let's say Miles, for whatever reason, doesn't adapt well to this wide nine. I think it's possible that maybe JOK continues to plateau or even regress, and we have issues at the linebacking front that makes us very open to tight end vulnerabilities again. And say what you want about this defense this year. The one thing that Joe Woods did get right was like tight ends did not murder us this year. I could count like 1 or 2 games where tight ends had big numbers, but Mark Andrews, all these guys that came through, they didn't do anything against the Browns. Maybe that becomes another problem. Maybe they give up too many third downs still. Maybe the run defense is still a problem, right? And the defense is not bad. It's not terrible, but it's not great, right? It's a 20th ranked defense in the NFL. So not exactly where you want to be. And then let's flip to special teams. Cade York continues to struggle, right? That's something that I can absolutely see happening. And let's say Cade York continues to struggle, and since the same special teams coordinator that advocated for him is still here, we still stick with it, right? Like, I think, me personally, I mean, I know some people are going to disagree and they're going to bring up Phil Dawson numbers or whatever outlier people want to bring up when it comes to kicker. Me personally, either Cade York's going to start making most of his kicks or he's gone. That's how I view it. A lot of people want to stick with him and ride it out. I don't need the greatest kicker of all time. I don't need a guy who's going to consistently make 60-yard field goals. If we're asking our kicker to make 60-yard field goals on a consistent basis, we are failing as an offense. Point blank, period. Should not be in position. The only field goal a kicker should be asked to make on a consistent basis is under 30 yards and extra points. And guess what? Most kickers off the street can do that. So if Cade York can't give me under 30-yard accuracy, maybe some 40-yard accuracy, and make his extra points, then I don't care if he can make a 66-yarder. I don't care if he can make a 70-yarder, because that stuff does not matter. It matters so little. Like there's such a little amount of things that are going to come back to that. And honestly, even if it does come back to that, it's more of a failure on the offense than it is a failure on the staff for not having a good enough kicker if you can't make a 70-yarder. So with Cade York, that's where I'm at. I hope the best for him. I honestly just want him to make his under 30s and his extra points. That's literally all I'm asking. The bar is super low for me for Cade York. But if he continues to miss his extra points, I can't stick with him. Can't. There's a million kickers out there that can make their extra points. Not a million. That's an over exaggeration, but there's 32 kickers in the NFL. And yes, probably 20 kickers out of the 32 can consistently make 50 plus yard field goals. But I don't really care about 50 plus yard field goals. I'd rather the offense just be better. And when you're paying $230 million for a quarterback, the offense better be better than requiring a 50 plus yard field goal all the time. I'm just saying. So given that we've spent money at quarterback, hey man, all the kicker really needs to do under 40, really under 30 extra points. If Cade can't do that, then I don't know. But let's say Cade can't do that and they still stick with him. Okay, that's going to cost you a couple games there, right? So not having a top 15 defense, that's going to cost you a couple games here. Not having just NFL average kicking, that's going to cost you a game probably. And then we go to the offense, and this is where I think there is the most concern about, right? Because I don't think it has anything to do with the people there. Well, it does. I think it has a lot to do with the investment on the offense is why everybody is so nervous about it, right? If I spend $5 to fix something on a bike, I'm not really stressing whether that fix is going to work or not. You know what I mean? Like I want it to, but if it don't, it don't. I'm not stressing about it. If I spent 35% of my net worth on trying to fix something, that thing better work. Like I'm going to be nervous about it. And I think that's what everybody feels like. We're getting this kind of, we're feeling it by osmosis, the investment that the Browns have made at quarterback, which is a lot. Deshaun Watson was a lot. You know, he was expensive. 3 first-round picks and $230 million for the next 5 years. You invested, at least one more first-round pick of the next 4 years. And then, $230 million over the course of these next 4 years in Deshaun Watson. Okay. Here we go, right? It's going to be interesting to see how we handle that kind of pressure. It's going to be interesting to see how Deshaun Watson handles that kind of pressure, right? Now, he's been paid before, but not at this level. Not at this level of scrutiny, right? When he got his money in Houston, he was kind of seen as like a golden child. He's far from that now, right? People are going to scrutinize everything he does, everything he gets, everything about him will be scrutinized. And that's kind of the bet he made for himself. So let's say that Watson continues to struggle. Let's say it feels like, let's say this feels like the last 6 weeks for a whole year. Now, one of the things I think we're worried about is, hey, will Watson even get back to 2020 form or to Houston Texans form? The big concern I have and why I would caution people is for the Browns to get to where they want to, which is a Super Bowl, Deshaun Watson's going to have to be better than he was in Houston. Now, that might not show up in stats, right? Not all improvement shows up statistically. And the improvements that I think Deshaun needs to make aren't going to be the ones that show up statistically. You're going to have to watch to see these improvements, right? There's a fine line between Deshaun Watson taking a sack because he's trying to make a play and Deshaun Watson taking a sack because he just ain't get rid of the damn ball, right? There's a fine line between those two ideas. You want him to hold the ball because he can make some spectacular plays. You don't want to take that away from him, but you also want him to tighten up the threshold of, okay, I can make a play here. I'm going to make a play, or let me get rid of this ball and not take a sack. It's one thing that Josh Allen rapidly improved with. It's one of the things where Russell Wilson has regressed with the most, right? Like that is a fine line. He has to find it again. He hadn't played in a while. It seemed like that was something that affected his ability to find that timing, right? He has to get better at that. Whatever was bugging him with the offense, whatever was like getting him off rhythm, off time so often with this offense has to be figured out. I think another thing that has to be figured out is Kevin Stefanski has to figure out, okay, you don't want to have an offense with a quarterback the caliber of Deshaun Watson that requires him to be in rhythm, because he is not a rhythm quarterback. he is much better than a rhythm quarterback, right? Mediocre to decent quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett's of the world, maybe even the Baker Mayfield of the world, your Case Keenums, your Brock Purdy's, your Kirk Cousins, like all those guys, David Carr, Derek Carr, all those guys. Sure, rhythm and timing offense, that's great for them. That works for them. But you don't put Joe Burrow in a rhythm and timing offense. You don't put Tom Brady in a rhythm timing offense. You don't put top level talent in a rhythm and timing offense. The reason is, and you can see this just by watching them, right? When you watch a game manager play football at the quarterback position, it's a lot of rhythm and timing, right? It's a lot of 1, 2, 3, step, drop, throw, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, step, drop, throw, right? There's not a lot of patting around, looking left, looking right, come back right, boom, right? You don't really see that a lot when you watch those level of quarterbacks. But the next time, and maybe you haven't paid attention to this, but the next time you watch a game, watch Joe Burrow play quarterback and then watch a game of Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback. It looks completely different, not just because of the capability, but when Jacoby's back there, it's 1, 2, 3. He gets to his steps. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm supposed to throw here. I'm going to throw here. Same thing like with Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo. Or honestly, you can see the difference between Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo here because Brock Purdy less of a game manager than Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo, right? 1, 2, 3, step, throw. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, step, throw. The ball gets out of there quick with those guys because that's what they can do and that's how they can get away with playing quarterback. But that's not necessarily the most optimal way to play quarterback. When you look at the best guys play, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, they hold the ball, right? They get to that step. They look at that first option. Nah. All right. Here. Okay. What about this? You know what? Back to 3. That's what Deshaun Watson is. That's what he's proven to be in the NFL. He's a former multiple-time Pro Bowler. He has led the league in passing yards. He has done stuff in the NFL. This is who he is. Now, I think last year they were trying to put him in a rhythm and timing offense that they had installed for Jacoby Brissett, and you just don't do that with a guy like that because you're not going to make him look good when you do that. They have to free up this offense from the restraints of rhythm and timing. And when I say rhythm and timing, like largely that doesn't exist. It's not like they're saying, hey, you have to be literally in rhythm to make this throw. It's more or less a concept of, hey, we're going to limit options for the quarterback. That's what people mean when they say rhythm and timing is we are trying to design an offense in a way to work around the limitations of most quarterbacks, which is mental processing, right? So it may look like rhythm and timing, and that's a good way to describe it when you're watching it visually. It's not technically rhythm and timing, right? It's not like, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, it's not like that. But the way it does work is, hey, we're telling you that these are going to be your 2 options. Your eyes are going to be left on this play. You're not going to leave this side of the field. We're going to ignore what's here, right? If we see 2 high shell, you're looking here. If you see cover 3 or quarters, we're going to be here. If you see maybe man coverage, we're going to have our eyes middle. But the eyes are fixed in the offense where you're working around the quarterback's limitations pre-snap. Right? We saw this with Baker Mayfield. We see this with Deshaun. Like in this offense, the way it works is that the eyes are fixed pre-snap. And that allows you to take a lot of the mental processing out. It's why you see like stare down interceptions in Shanahan systems all the time. It's because that's kind of how it's coached. So that's how you would do things with Jacoby Brissett. And I think that's why they did things the way they did with Deshaun when Jacoby was when he took over, because they had the offense installed for Jacoby Brissett. And it's not a simple, okay, Deshaun's back, let's flip the plays up and throw it in there. Like that's a whole restructure of how things are viewed and played and read. That's going to take a whole offseason to get reinstalled for everybody, because it's not just Deshaun that needs to have that. It's the wide receivers, it's the offensive line, it's the tight ends. It's not a simple 1-week fix. So that's going to be something, right? I'm anticipating that to be the case, that this is going to look a lot different next season, and how progressions are made and how reads are made are going to look a lot different. But let's say they don't make that change and it continues to look like it did the last 6 weeks. That's going to be a problem, because we're already behind, right? We need Deshaun to be better than he was in 2020, and we're still talking about him reclaiming his 2020 glory. He needs to be better than that, Because you look at Joe Burrow, he's not slowing down. You look at Pat Mahomes, he's not slowing down. That's what you're up against. You got to get through those two. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, he's got to be better than he was in 2020. He does. He knows that too. And if he's not, this team has the possibility to disappoint. If he's just as good as he was in 2020, we'll make the playoffs. We might get to the second round. We might get to the third round. I don't know if we get to the Super Bowl, but we're going to go pretty far. We're going to be pretty happy with it. But if he plays better than 2020, we're going to be Super Bowl contenders at the very least. But that's what it takes. And I'm not overly sold that we're going to get there this year. That's my biggest concern about why they would be bad. So Deshaun not being better than he was in Houston in a short period of time, that's hard to sell on. Offensive line seems to be having issues holding together. Maybe that continues to be a problem. And also the way Deshaun plays quarterback, you're just going to have more sacks. There's ways to limit that. And again, he has to be smart about that and make those adjustments, but he's going to have more sacks. Defensively, not living up to potential. Special teams, the kicker, still missing the extra points. If those four things happen, this could be another year where everybody gets fired. No, we don't make the playoffs and everybody gets fired because the stakes are too high to just let it ride. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Everybody have a great day. Have a good night.